Spotlight is proudly sponsored by HEC Media, St. Louis's home for arts, education, and culture.
My love for this field has always been there.
Concrete is canvas. Walls are canvas.
You can be that one to make a difference.
Today on Spotlight, she wrote Confessions of a Shopaholic, and today she tells us about her new novel. Plus, there's a study in some North County schools to see if weekly surveillance COVID testing reduces the spread. And then a St. Louis Post-Dispatch cartoonist talks about how she creates clever comics. But first, a professional drone pilot instructor teaches others how to fly this sophisticated equipment. It's Sunday and you're watching the multiple Emmy Award-winning Spotlight.
By now, you've probably seen a drone in flight. Heck, you might even own one yourself. But have you ever thought about turning that hobby into a profession? And if so, what sort of certification and training would you need?
Airversity is a professional drone pilot training academy. We are focused on commercial, corporate, and public safety pilots. Our goal is to ensure that people know how to fly effectively and to really understand how to use this very sophisticated equipment.
Bronwyn Morgan started Airversity because she wanted to encourage people, especially young people, to get into geospatial intelligence and inspire them. She focuses on people who are already flying drones and want to help them become FAA certified as well as expand their overall abilities.
We want to make sure that everybody can share the sky safely and understand how this equipment works, what the national airspace requirements are for drones so that they don't create any hazards and get into trouble. This should be fun. And then from a public safety perspective, it is continuing to sharpen that skill set, training new public safety, both law enforcement and fire officers and other operators on how to use this equipment so that they fully understand that, and it's not just the drone, it's all the sensors that go along with it and how these sensors can provide better information and data. Because at the end of the day, it's really all about the data.
To train pilots, to get the professional pilot better at what he does. To help new pilots understand, okay, I got these images, now what do I do with them? We're going to be teaching a simple orthomosaic, how to create a map from a flight. So if I'm doing a survey for like a survey company, how to get your flight and then how to get that overlay so you can create a usable map out of that.
Bronwyn has always been interested in flight and space, but she didn't start off even thinking about training drone pilots.
That, along with my love for aviation and aerospace since I was a kid, you know, I wanted to fly fighters, but I couldn't. Women couldn't fly fighters when I left high school. So going to the, military academy was an option, but I wouldn't be able to fly fighters. And then I said, well, I'll just go and become an aerospace engineer and work at NASA or JPL and become an astronaut. I didn't do that either. I actually went down another path into business, but my love for this field has always been there. Now with my new certifications and drones becoming a commercial civilian opportunity, I thought this is a perfect marriage for me at this point in time.
This is getting her noticed, not only with those seeking to improve their knowledge of drones, but also with the greater geospatial community and the St. Louis civic community at large.
In the way that I think most everybody in this room does, it's going to have to come from making more people aware and bringing more people into the fold. And so that's what Bronwyn's doing, and it's incredible that she's able to do that she's able to do it authentically, and she's one of the most exciting assets we have here in the geospatial space.
Scan the QR code on your screen to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram.
British author Sophie Kinsella first hit the top of the bestseller list with her 2000 debut novel, Confessions of a Shopaholic. Now beloved internationally for her charming combination of humor and heart, she has sold more than 45 million books worldwide, including 8 additional books in the Shopaholic series and 10 standalone novels. In Sophie's latest novel, The Party Crasher, lovable main character Effie is not invited to her father's glamorous girlfriend's party of the year, but that's certainly not going to stop her from turning the celebration into dysfunctional family chaos. For today's conversation, Sophie is joined by novelist Amanda Ayer Ward, New York Times bestselling author of The Jet Setters, Sleep Toward Heaven, and 6 other novels.
So we are talking today about The Party Crasher, which is such an incredible book. And I hope you could take a few minutes telling us about your newest standalone novel.
It is about a party. And I think that part of me, when I was writing it, which was during lockdown, was thinking, where would we like to be right now? I've always written escapist fiction. And in this book, I was like escaping into a party. So I really
escaping your house?
Exactly, into, the kind of party which we can enjoy. So I wanted it not just to be a party, but a kind of grand, opulent, kind of super fun party with like lots of glamour to it. So it's a really glamorous party. It's a family party. But I wanted my main character to be estranged from everybody else giving the party and to end up eavesdropping and creeping around the party as like a fly on the wall.
Your books are so hilarious and so fun. Were you always the life of the party?
Actually, no. I mean, it took me a while to kind of find comedy for myself, or maybe to realize that I had a comedic view on life, because I thought my view on life was like just normal, like everybody thought like this. And I do remember when I was like a teenager, I would say things just like almost like in all innocence, like that's my take on this, and people would laugh and I would be surprised. I would think, oh, is that funny? Oh, maybe it is. And so gradually I kind of worked this out, that I was kind of entertaining people. And I think I've always loved the absurd, the ridiculous.
So what about returning to any characters we know, or are you working on a standalone? I have never written a second book of the same characters, and I kind of miss some of them.
Yes, I can imagine. I mean, I always feel a sense of loss whenever I deliver a book, actually, because I've kind of lived in this world and it's just been me and them, and my husband is the only other person. And we've been in this kind of little lovely garden where we've played around, and and then you're letting them into the world, and are you going to move on or are you going to return? And the only character I've really ever returned to is Becky Bloomwood, who is my Shopaholic girl. And what
was the last one with her? We had
Christmas Shopaholic.
Oh yes, right, okay.
Yeah, so that was one of the most fun books I've ever written in my life. That Shopaholic universe sort of feels open-ended, it feels like one of these ongoing series that I can just dip into and it's all still going on. Whereas every other book has kind of felt like it's finished. I've told that story now. And so I miss the characters and I wonder what they're up to, but I don't feel compelled to go back and actually write what they're up to. And I do get a lot of readers saying, oh, could we have another one of these? And so far I haven't, because it feels self-contained.
Scan the QR code on your screen with your phone's camera to watch the full interview and find out about her superstition and the one thing she has to do before she can ever start typing a book. Or head to hecmedia.org.
For original programming and award-winning content, explore hecmedia.org. Find all of your favorite genres, including the arts and sciences. Go in-depth with the latest research. Get insight into new technologies. Learn about breakthrough discoveries. Find it all in one place. Explore hecmedia.org.
Weekly testers drop off samples of COVID-19 test kits at University City High School. This is motivated by the idea of weekly screening testing for COVID-19 at schools, a recommendation by the CDC.
Doing weekly screening testing is a recommended strategy by the CDC at limiting the amount of transmission of COVID-19 in schools. We need better data. We need more data to say, is that true? Do we really need to go this length of adding another layer of mitigation?
Pediatric infectious diseases physician Dr. Jason Newland wanted to see if the idea would work through this research project. Newland established the Safe Return to School study at Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis, with weekly testing locations at participating schools in North St. Louis County. It's part of the Safe Return to School Diagnostic Testing Initiative funded by the National Institutes of Health.
The goal of the study, number one, was to determine if weekly screening testing was best at limiting the amount of transmission of COVID-19 in schools.
And this is how he wanted to find out, by enrolling participating middle schools and high schools before the fall semester for the entire school year. Just inside the front doors of University City High School, the Washington University School of Medicine team is collecting test kits once a week from study participants.
I smile when I hear about the partnership with Washington University, as Dr. Jason Newland and his team have been incredibly supportive, and we've worked together as a team. They are visible, friendly, and professional and welcoming. And because of the positive spirit and the way that they have embraced our school community, I think it's helped boost participation in the study and increase trust around mitigation strategies and science as it relates to the pandemic.
The test kits contain saliva samples ready for COVID-19 testing.
Staff or students or household members will drop off their test kits in the morning, so usually very early in the mornings before school starts, and then we'll bring them to a separate place where we'll process those tests. So we'll pick up if they have any quarantine or any symptoms. We have a weekly testing form that has all that information, and then we'll just put in the date and time they took the test, and then we'll scan in those test tubes.
Saliva testing is then done inside this Washington University research laboratory. University City High School is one of 8 schools in 5 North County school districts participating in weekly screening testing for asymptomatic infections. There are 16 schools in the 5 districts participating in a broader study, offering school and community testing for those who have symptoms.
For anyone who might need a test, we're in the parking lot. It's free. We try to make the process as streamlined as possible.
It incorporates so much community partnership. We partner with different community organizations. We have a community advisory board where we get input in from staff, students, and their parents about what we're doing.
Through it all, Newland's primary goal was to provide scientific evidence about weekly screening testing for schools. But for that to work, it takes more people.
Really, to understand that best, you need to have as many people participate as possible, which just has been challenging. I don't think doing it through a consented-based research project is the way to do it. I think it's just too hard.
Newland says University City has the most participants, which still hasn't been a lot.
We'll probably test around 80 to 90 or so tests at specifically only U City High School each week. And we have about 150 participants overall at the high schools.
But since this particular school day in December, study participation has risen with the surge of COVID-19 cases from the Omicron variant.
It benefits us by keeping us safe. The sooner we know of any positive cases, the sooner we can implement contact tracing and quarantines if necessary to ensure the safety of all of our staff and students.
Although the number of people doing weekly screening testing isn't what they had hoped, Newland says the overall study is providing some valuable insights. One is that 70% of positive cases of COVID-19 are unvaccinated people. For more information, go to our website, hecmedia.org.
An interview with radio personality DJ Kut later on Spotlight.
I always say that the best way to learn how to draw a comic is to draw a comic. When I started drawing, I was reading a lot of webcomics, and I wanted to do my own webcomic as well. There are so many different kinds of comics that the comics industry is really a lot bigger than just the part that most people see. A lot of people assume that the comic book industry is really male-dominated, but if you are a part of the industry, you can see that it is very much 50-50, if not more, leaning towards women. And that's one of the things that really inspired me. So with Elements Fire, I got to decide what they looked like and their mannerisms and how they interact with others. And I decided that I wanted, everyone in there to be a person of color because white people aren't the only people that have adventures. And I see so many stories that involve people of color, and it's always about the struggle, having to deal with racism, and it's like, that's really not all that we deal with. I really focus on trying to create a story and a character from their body movements, what kind of clothes they wear. I just try and pick a little bit of what is in their universe that makes them who they are. The creator, the original creator of Heart of the City, Mark Tatuli, was retiring. They wanted to continue, but also change it so that it was more for a readership for today, a more modern audience. Now I do Heart of the City full-time, and that is a daily comic that you can get in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. I know with Heart in particular, she's precocious and rambunctious, and I wanted to find a way to take that, because when Mark was doing it, she was a little girl, 6 or 7, but take that and move it into the middle school area. You know, what happens when you take that aggressive kind of personality and put it in middle school? You know, how do people react to it? How does she think about not just her relationship with her best friend, but her best friend's relationship with their other best friend, you know, and what does, you know, her living space look like, and living with her mom, being a single mother. So I really just have to kind of imagine who is this person and what in their life makes them who they are, and try and get that across in 4 panels. So I have to really try and find a way to take an idea and simplify it down enough so that it can be on the page, but also clear enough that people understand what that is. And that's really what cartooning is about. It's about taking something big, an idea, and making it a lot clearer. The idea of being nervous, of being anxious, is kind of a big idea, but what are some of the things that you do when you're nervous? Do you bite your nails? Do you sweat? Do you look to the left or to the right? And so you have to pick, well, which one of those works better for the scene? So let's say I'm doing a strip for Heart of the City. I actually write all of the Heart of the City stories months and months ahead of time, so that when I'm actually drawing them, I'm just pulling from stuff that I've already written. Then I'll do these roughs. So they're basically just really messy ideas of what's going to go on the strip. They're basically just placements, those roughs. The inks is really my favorite part, because it's really more of solidifying the pencils that you've already done. You know, you really want to get something that you see in your mind, but getting on paper, it's difficult. I think you can tell stories with all different kinds of art styles, and it's really about how you use the art to really evoke a feeling or get an idea across. I like to think that I pick and pull from all kinds of people, you know? So the way I draw eyes comes from some person, or the way I color comes from another, you know? So I think it just kind of is an amalgamation of all the things that I'm interested in. I can't think of any comic creator that doesn't want there to be comics 70 years from now, you know? And so if we want that to happen, we have to make sure that the landscape is good enough for everyone else to come into. So that's what I hope that I'm doing.
St. Louis's own Chuck Berry was the first musician ever inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame on January 23, 1986. Berry was an archetype for the music that would define the 20th century. Rolling Stones guitarist Keith Richards inducted Berry with the memorable line, "It's very difficult for me to talk about Chuck Berry because I lifted every lick he ever played." You can find the stories featured in today's show, along with past episodes and more, at hecmedia.org/spotlight.
My name is Finch, and I'm a street artist in San Francisco. I paint what I call contemporary pop art, which is meant to be specific enough to give you some idea of what I do, but vague enough that I can kind of do whatever I want. But it's typically either everyday objects or it's objects from nature. Pop art is that there are these objects around us that are inherently beautiful, and it takes the artist to point a finger at it and ask you to view it like art. There's a lot of care that goes into these objects, and so maybe you feel a little bit more loved if you realize that we're kind of surrounded by designed objects. You kind of take it all for granted because there's just too many objects to really think about, but the artist is ask you to look at one, maybe for a point in time. To me, street art is just like a tool to get to somewhere that's better. Concrete is canvas, walls are canvas. The interest of artists in creating public art is enormous, but the willingness of landlords to permit their walls to be painted is actually quite low. To me, it's just like a concept that needs to be spread. And so partly I hope with my work that when someone sees that, they're like, oh, I really like that. And so it's kind of just trying to acclimate people to it. And then hopefully we end up in a world where if the building is not historical or architecturally interesting, there's a lot of like Soviet era, 1970s, brutalist concrete monoliths that are just perfect canvases because they're totally flat, right? And yeah, like we should just paint those, all of them. So this is a 35 by 50 foot mural that is comprised of 4 honey bears. They are artist bear, sort of represent the Centene Center for the Arts and the Arts and Education Council and activities that happen within this building. There's the violin bear to kind of represent the Powell Symphony Hall and the Fox Theater and the Sheldon, which are all nearby. Then there's the blues bear, just to commemorate the fact that the Blues won the Stanley Cup. And then the last one is the fancy bear, I call it. Some people call it top hat bear. And that's sort of the Gilded Age history of St. Louis. I call it a universal symbol of happiness. It's something that we all had as children. It's a very surreal object. Like, why is there honey in a bear? It doesn't make any sense, and I like that about it. So again, it's pointing the finger at the object. Think about this object as an art object. So when I first painted it, it was done on a park wall, and people really had a strong positive response. So then I went out and started painting them on mailboxes in the Mission District of San Francisco. And after maybe one night more or 2 nights more of doing them, I was like, this kind of feels like graffiti. It's like repeating the same image over and over again. And I wanted to do something that was like that because we like repetition, but I wanted to make it where you're kind of in on the game. And then now I've realized that I can just tell stories with the bears. So in this case, I can adapt it to the building and the community. It's a very adaptable image, but it still has this kind of underlying whimsy.
HEC Media, recognized, celebrated, honored time and again for excellence in the industry. HEC Media has been bringing home the hardware for over a decade. Arts and education to author talks, magazine shows and documentaries, individual craft achievements to overall excellence. Find all of the award-winning content at hecmedia.org.
This story is brought to you in partnership with STL Made.
Music, to some people, was a hobby. To me, it was my life. It was my escape from the madness. My father owned a record store. It was on Delmore in between Whittier and Sarah. It was called Henry's Black Connection. He used to fix TV sets and component sets, but one thing I liked most about the shop is they had that gigantic speaker like right in the center of the building. Crank it up, you can play that loud music outside. Radio was like the soundtrack of our lives. So I would go to bed with the radio on, or wake up to the radio. Just, so many memories of radio. When WESL or KTZ AM played Rapper's Delight, and I was like in the 6th grade going to Yeatman. What is this new phenomenon that just hit us called rap music? While that was going on, to listen to them do live broadcasts at the clubs, the Regal Room and Godfather and Jockenstein and all those guys. Never met them before, but just always would hear them. Like when Jockenstein had the roll call going on.
It's time for a roll call.
And what's your name? What's your sign? Libra. Give me that #1 school, we call it Roosevelt Senior High. But the roll call to St. Louis was everything. And Jockenstein was like the god of radio to us. I mean, he appealed to the adults, but he always cared about the children. I remember when I got the call to go to work at Power 105 in New York. And a lot of people in St. Louis that have been watching me always tell me, man, you're not gonna be here, you're gonna leave us. At the time, I was a board op for Doc Winter on Magic 105 at the time. Plus, I was still on the radio on the beat. Toured with Cedric the Entertainer.
You know, we did it big, you know, out on tour, on the road, St. Louis's finest.
Tour with Nelly on the MTV TRL tour. I was on tour with Nelly, and we had a show in Jacksonville. I invited Doc to the show, and he was in the audience, and he saw me on the stage. And then leaving the show, watch how people that came to the show interacted with me. He's like, man, you got star power. So I guess that seed was planted then. That was like November 2001. So I was in New York for 10 years. So a lot of people ask me, why did I come back? I got a job to come back to my hometown. So it was a beautiful situation.
No one could have predicted how the deadly shooting of Michael Brown would rip open deep racial wounds here in St. Louis. Details are in question, but what is certain, there is heartbreak left behind.
Didn't know Michael Brown, didn't know Leslie McSpadden, didn't know Mike Brown Sr. Knew nothing, but I just knew this city was about to blow up. So the only thing I felt is I can try to be the voice of reason to the city of St. Louis. This is my home. We'd already dealt with Trayvon Martin, so this just happened. And I just started getting dressed, go to the radio station, turn that mic on, and speak from the heart. Because I know that could have been one of my children. Give me a second. What I would say to any of the youth, regardless of what's happening around you, you still can make it, because you have a choice. It doesn't matter what's happening around you, you can be that one to make a difference. Local radio is still important. Like you can pipe in your satellite stuff and your syndicated shows, but you gotta have somebody with their finger on the pulse of the city. Syndicated show might give you, hey, congratulations to down in St. Louis, the Blues won the cup. But it's different than one of us being downtown. Yo, it's crazy downtown. Everybody got on blues. We celebrating St. Louis style, Red Hot Rippers, best soda. It's the St. Louis way. The legacy I want to leave behind is like, when you say a person like Jockenstein, you're like, oh, the god of radio, the white glasses and the doctor's coat and stuff like that. He was huge because he was being himself. I want people to say, man, Kut, love him or hate him, Kut was Kut. You got what you saw, you know? I'm DJ Kut, and I'm STL made.
Visit thestl.com for more stories like this one. Next week, it's our Valentine's Day episode, the unique way the Butterfly House celebrates. Plus, young adult authors discuss books about the highs and lows of love. Thanks for watching Spotlight. Join us next Sunday at 9:30 a.m. on KPLR 11.